Good greetings and welcome to Serenity with Pastor P.J. Banks Anderson, retired U.S. Navy chaplain. We want to start out with the prayer for which our time together is named. It is a prayer that was written by Reinhold Niebuhr, and it reads, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. A very important prayer, not only to recite from time to time and maybe throughout the day, but particularly when you are having a difficult time accepting something or adjusting to changes that are bound to be in your life. The primary purpose of Serenity is to share with you information and inspiration. Our byline, so to speak, is this: to have serenity or peace on earth and goodwill toward everyone. It must first begin within, individuals having serenity and peace within. That is a perfect segue into our topic for today, which is the wise and the foolish builders. Let me start parenthetically by saying a few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of meeting with, having lunch with, breaking bread with, being in fellowship with Andrea Collier King. She is a professional columnist, that freelance columnist, and during our conversation together, I was sharing with her that I write weekly articles that often appear in the Cleveland Call Post and in the Dayton Weekly newspaper in Dayton, Ohio. Of course, the Cleveland Call Post in Cleveland, Ohio. And every once in a while, I will appear in the Michigan Chronicle. And I shared with her that one of my lifelong dreams was to become a syndicate writer, that I would appear in newspapers all over the country. Well, lo and behold, and the point is, be careful what you ask for, because God, by whatever name you call God, but the universe is obliged to give you what you ask for. The universe is kind of like our humongous genie. Your wish is the universe's command. So I was just very casually talking about my desire to be a columnist and a syndicate columnist. And she said, well, send me some of your articles and let's see what we can do. Well, lo and behold, last week I was at the Ann Arbor VA at one of my support groups. Many of you know that I'm a retired U.S. Navy chaplain, served in the first Gulf War. And so from time to time, I need to talk about the PSD, the post-traumatic stress disorder that I sometimes experience. So I was with my group, and I noticed that when I walked into the room, people were greeting me and saying, how you doing? It's nice to see you. And I was saying to myself, okay, we see each other just about every week. But I had missed the week before. And at the end of our session together, one of my buddies stood up and said, well, I can't hold it any longer. I said, you can't hold what any longer? He said, I found this article that you wrote that appeared in the Michigan Chronicle, and I recopied it and passed it out to everybody in the group. And I said to myself, oh, so that's why people were saying the things that they were saying to me. And then I said to him, well, it must be an old article, because I don't know that I've appeared in the Michigan Chronicle for I don't know how long. And he said, well, is April of 2013 an old article? And I said, no, it is not an old article. And he gave me a copy of an article that I wrote entitled The Wise and the Foolish Builders. I am going to attribute that to Sister Andrea Collier King for making the connection in helping me to fulfill one of my dreams of becoming a national syndicated columnist, writing articles that will appear across the United States on religious matters for the most part. This article is named "The Wise and the Foolish Builders." The quote that follows the title of the article is, "Showing off is the fool's idea of glory." And this is the way the article begins. Developing messages on the kingdom of heaven, which is what we have been doing at St. Stephen's Community Church. It has been our intent to study what it means, what the kingdom of heaven means, what the kingdom of God means, equipping members of the church to understand what kingdom building is all about, is a bit of a challenge. Now, why? Because Jesus informs us on a number of occasions that the kingdom of heaven or the kingdom of God is within. Now, let me just park here parenthetically and say that Jesus isn't the only one that has preached, that has taught, that has tried to influence humanity with the whole idea that everything that you could ever want, everything that you could ever hope for, everything that you could ever dream of is within the individual. Let me continue. We also discovered in our studies that the kingdom of heaven is also that place where your king, where your God is in charge, is in complete reign of your life. So if your God is money, then money has complete reign over your life. If your God is alcohol, then alcohol has complete reign over your life. If your God is cigarettes, then cigarettes has complete reign over your life. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, if love, and love is everything because love is God and God is love, if love is reigning over your life, then love will be a significant part of your life. If trusting reigns over your life, then you will trust in your higher power. So it works on both sides. Whatever your God is, whatever your reign is, whatever your kingdom is, has complete control over your life. If God is to have complete reign, then kingdom builders are charged with making the invisible visible, the intangible tangible, and the untouchable touchable. How do we do that? How do we bring the invisible, which is the spirit world, into visibility, which is the physical world? Well, according to Marianne Wilkerson, it starts within. Marianne Wilkerson is the author of many books, but particularly A Course in Miracles. And in that book, she reminds us that we are to reclaim our disowned self. Carl Jung is the first one to have come up with the concept of the shadow concept. He said it is like a subpersonality. It's the disowned parts of us. It's the part we had to push down because we had to cope. As a child or as children, most of us were in dysfunctional families, and we had to learn coping skills, strategies that worked then really don't work now, because as an adult, what we have been pushing down most of our lives, it's beginning to rise up. A lot of the violence that we are experiencing in the streets in urban cities all across America, it comes from anger that we've been pushing down year after year after year, as an example. And when you become an adult, you have to do something with all that energy that you push down, because it is still there. The unwarranted punishments they're still there. The unacceptable mind controlling over the pulpit, they are still there. The discrimination that we have experienced, where we could not speak to it without being severely punished by the criminal system, they are still there. Having to hold your peace even when you were right and not allowed to defend yourself, they are still there. So to reclaim your shadow self, that part of you that is hidden and pushed down from years of denial, they must be dealt with. We will either deal with them, the things that we have pushed down through the years, or they will manifest themselves in some very ugly ways. Domestic violence, perfect example. Alcoholism, perfect example. Drug addiction, perfect example. These are ways in which things that we've pushed down very often acts out in our lives. So, since we are expressions of God, I am an expression of God as Pamela June Banks Anderson. You are an expression of God by whatever your name is. It is often God's light, not our darkness, that frightens us the most. Many people go to their graves unchanged because they fear the light. Many people go throughout life hating other people because they fear enlightenment. But the answer is just be still and ask the divine spirit of your higher power to shine the light on your darkness. Face them, surrender them, and make room for more light and more awareness. And not just divine awareness, but self-awareness. See yourself as you speak. Hear yourself as you speak. Listen with the third ear. See with the third eye who you really are, and then you will see yourself as the higher power sees you. See, God sees it anyway. So your higher power knows you anyway, only waiting for you to see it the same way God sees it so that you can be healed. Much of our dis-ease, much of our sickness, much of our mental illness comes from pushing down the things that have been done to us, that are negative, that are oppressive, that are devalue us throughout our lives. And that's really what it's all about, having value for the life that you have been given. The parable of the wise and the foolish builders may help to make the point of what happens when you get to the foundation, to the fundamental bedrock of the matter, and when you don't. In Holy Writ, the 7th chapter of Matthew, verses 24 through 29, it tells the story of a wise builder who built a house on bedrock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the wind blew and beat against that house. And it didn't fall because it was firmly set on a foundation. Well, on the other hand, the foolish builder built his house on sand. The foolish house was exposed to the same inclement weather that the wisely built house was exposed to. But when the rain fell and the floods came and the wind blew and beat upon the house of the foolish builder, guess what happened? The house fell. The house collapse. The house could not withstand the weather. When the storms of life come, if you have built your house, we're talking internally now, if you have built your house on love and on peace and on joy and on community and on critical thinking and on examining your faith and on prayer and on fasting and on reading not just Holy Writ that we call the Bible, but reading all works of inspiration. When you have built your house on such things as this, on investment and on saving and on giving to charitable organizations and giving to faith-based organizations and giving to individuals that are attempting to make a difference in our lives, when you have built your house on such things, it doesn't matter how the winds of life blow. The accusations that may come against you won't matter. The negative words that are thrown at you, they won't matter. You will not collapse under such things because you have built your house on a firm foundation. And that's the point. Ask God to shine the light on the foundation of your being, on the inner person, on the inner spirit, so that you can be wise, so that you can be a wise builder and not a foolish builder. And this is the beauty of it all, friends, is that it's never too late. It is never too late to change the direction in which you are walking. If you have been on a downward spiral all of your life, it is never too late to say in one of the parables, which is a story that Jesus specialized in telling parables and telling stories, to make the point plain. And in this case, I'm talking about the parable of the prodigal, who had left home and demanded of his family his inheritance long before he knew what to do with it, and went and squandered all of it. You remember, he was the one that ended up having his dinner with the pigs. Well, we come to a point in our lives when we, particularly when we've been on a downward spiral, can't find a job, can't find any help, can't find any hope, that we have to come to ourselves and recognize that we are on this earth. In the words of Rhonda Byrne, the author of The Secret and the Power, we are on this earth to have an amazing life. And if your life is less than amazing, come to yourself, become self-aware. Put your dreams and your goals and your hopes in writing and say to the universe, just like I said to Sister Andrea Collier King, someday I would like to be a national columnist, and watch the universe say to you, your wish is my command. And then we end all articles with this request, that you pray for American and coalition souls that have been killed in action, all the way back to World War I. We generally do this on behalf of the men and the women in the service who have lost their lives in the Afghan and Iraq conflict. But it really is for all American and all coalition, that means allies, who served in wars all the way back to World War I, that you remember their souls, that part that lives when when our bodies, when the spirit is separated from our bodies. And let me just say, it is my opinion, chapter 1, verse 1, I don't have any thing upon which to base what I am attempting to say, but I think the difference between the body and the soul is the body has blood and the soul does not have blood. That's the primary difference. It looks like my soul looks like me. And when my soul separates from my body, it's just leaving the flesh for its own life beyond the life of the physical, going into the life of the invisible. I think it is Marion Wilkerson, author of A Course in Miracles, that also states nothing dies. And many scientists have said the same thing. Nothing dies. We just shed the physical for the pure spiritual experience. But in addition to asking you to pray for the American and coalition souls killed in action, we also ask that you remember their families, because anytime any one of us joins the service, even though our spouses and our children and our relatives and our parents and our siblings may not raise the right hand to take the oath, it is just as real for the military families as it is for the ones who do raise their hands and take the oath. So we ask that you remember their families. And during this last conflict, we have added especially their children. This is the deal, America. When World War I and World War II, and perhaps even Vietnam and the Korea conflict were served by military personnel, it was during a time when families were much stronger. Families are very fragile today, but it was during a time when family life was important. It was during a time when faith was important, and today family and faith, we are competing with so many worldly things that may not necessarily support or lift up family or lift up faith. We have sports on Sunday mornings when most Protestants worship. We have other things going on Saturdays when our Jewish community has worship. And then we have even more things going on Friday, which is the Sabbath for the Muslims in our community. And so there's always something in the world competing for something to distract you from your faith. But hold on to your faith even so. No matter what comes, no matter what goes, be that wise house builder on behalf of your children. But where I'm going with this is, in the newer age, in the 21st century, during the Afghan and the Iraq conflict, families have been very fragile. The old timers were taught to suck it up, be a man, be a woman. And so a lot of the post-traumatic stress disorders that they experienced were kind of just put aside. Be a man, be a woman. But for the younger generation, it is not so. It's not too late, no matter your age. It's not too late, no matter what war or conflict you served in. It's not too late, no matter what your circumstances are. You are not your circumstances. You are a son. You are a daughter of the universe, of the Most High Power, by whatever name. And so be encouraged to build your house on a solid foundation. And so we have come to the end of our time together for this time, but we ask that you remember and recite the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Until next time, serenity.